offer support for the families that they left behind who have lost important members of their life, important members of their community, and also to support the communities that have also lost someone that was cherished and important to them. These vigils that we're setting up really are very informal. We want you all, if you want to talk, if you knew someone who's killed either during July or at some other time, if you know someone who's being hurt, to talk about how domestic violence is impacting your life, how these particular homicides are impacting your life. I think in addition to the fact that we've lost some very cherished people in our community, I've talked to many women over the last several weeks who have been very much afraid of what can happen to them if they're in the middle of a divorce, feeling like they need to give something more up to the person they're divorcing, or he might hurt them or their children. If they're thinking about leaving, that they are in graver danger. And I think that this is an important moment in our community, in that if we can come together and understand the significance and the danger involved in domestic violence and really figure out a way as a community, throughout the community, to support victims, then maybe we can stop these homicides from happening. We can stop the injury to women that are happening, the injury to children that's happening. So on the one hand, because it's been so intense, because there have been so many so quickly, I hope it's a crossroads for this community, for all parts of this community, to do something. I also know that for individual women who are in danger right now, this is a very, very terrifying time, because they have in front of them 8 deaths, and the perpetrators have in front of them 8 deaths, and it raises the stakes for what they're trying to do when they try to get out. Not only have there been 8 people killed, there are 2 women right now in intensive care, 3 women now in intensive care at Legacy Emmanuel Hospital because of domestic violence. And so not only do we have the homicides, but we have ongoing abuse throughout the community. One of the things about these homicides and the reason the vigils are spread all over the community, is because they literally have cut across all races and across all socioeconomic classes. Women have been killed, children have been killed, a police officer has been killed. No one can compartmentalize it into, it's someone else, it's not my family, my friends, my church, my community, my neighborhood. It is all over Multnomah County, and I think there's some important lessons that I hope we can all learn from it. I think Karen's going to talk some, and someone's going to read a poem, I'm not sure, and someone's going to sing. And then we're going to open it up for some more discussion among us to help us build community and provide support for victims.
I moved here, and after I divorced, there was about a 10-year period of just existing, just healing and learning, and I guess existing is the word I'm still looking for. And during that time, I wrote a poem about where I'd been, and at that time I was dreaming, so I signed it with a pen name of Rosemary Burton, which I've made a few poems but not too many, because I was going to envision to be a writer. And so I will start with that one and read it to you. It's Battered Women. I want you to think of the battered woman and listen for her cries. She can't do this often, you know, as she's not always in her eyes. She started out in love, as we all thought we were. Then things slowly got worse. To look back is just a blur. He began to slap her now and again. He was so sorry, it will never happen again. Her shame and his intimidation soon drove her friends away. No one was left to talk to, or at least it felt that way. The abuse is getting more and often, the bruises staying longer. The kids are learning that this is the way. To keep people in line, you must do as they say. Communication is gone with all. She chooses her words carefully. Only speak when spoken to, and then briefly as you can, so you don't rile his nerves to the point of raising his hand. Then comes her patience, courage, beyond what most people think they can endure. all for the sake of the children and the vows that she said so many years ago. The worst is now and the best to come. She promised God she would hang in there. As time goes by, the attitude changes. The broken vows, the feeling of defeat, the hopelessness takes over. The children grow and learn. You protect them as best you can. Then something so small turns your life around, and you watch and you wait, not at all letting on. The courage to take it and the patience to watch for the right time to go. The kids are grown, the last leaving home. 25 years you have watched and they have grown. Now, run like hell, hide and grow, learn to live and love again. But from this experience, no trust is left. You hold people at bay and you're not worth 5 cents. Time will heal, and often in time, you will learn to stop looking over your shoulder for him. Then life will begin. And after a very long cooling off period, life did begin for me. As a child, I wasn't allowed to go to school. So I went to school and got my GED, and then a little bit of college. I learned to stop and think and listen to my children. I don't think I will ever forget the experiences that I've had, but I've also learned that if I forget, I might not learn and watch so that I don't pass them on to my children and grandchildren. So things that panic me, I think domestic violence is a little bit like sexual harassment to a man. Domestic violence is to a woman. It's something that they don't really think about until they've been there. You're protecting kids, you know, don't say this, don't say that. Then maybe you need to think about why you're doing this and what situation you're in and learn how to get out of it. And it's scary. And my life was, like I say, fragmented for almost 10 years in different areas. I didn't know where to go or how to begin. But it does get better. And I'm worth about $500,000 now, but don't tell anybody, I might get charged for it. So.
What you're questioning is maybe an abusive situation. So I guess I'll just say one phone number, the Pregnant Women's Crisis Line is 235-5333. And it's open to anyone to call just to talk or to get information and referrals. And I think that way you cannot feel alone and maybe get some support if you have questions.
Is that anonymous?
Yes.
I mean, if you're not ready, can you call and talk? Because I know there were a lot of times when I was frightened to call for fear somebody would come in and I wasn't ready yet.
Absolutely, it's all confidential.
I even slapped a cop one time. I mean, you know, thinking he'll arrest me, and he didn't. He left me there, and I thought that this is unbelievable because and he said, well, I knew you weren't yourself, you know, you didn't, and I did mean to slap him. I wanted to go to jail. Don't leave me here, you know, but he did, so.
As alone, if I could cheer somebody in a word or so, if I could show somebody who is traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. If I could do my duty as a Christian ought, if I could bring back beauty to a world abroad. Oh, if I could spread love's message that the Savior has taught, I just want to remind you that my living, it shall not be in vain. Then my living, it shall, oh, if I could help just one somebody as I pass along, then my living, it shall not be in vain.
Our recent campaign is we're doing a campaign around transportation, and we surveyed about 300 people.
Jesus School Board members and the county commissioner, and we presented demands to them. And so one of our demands was to distribute a one-page info sheet, which got turned into a brochure into all the Portland Public Middle and High Schools. And we also, the county, they also sponsored a resolution to end violence against girls. So that was another one of our demands that we won. And we also asked them to implement a tracking and reporting system, because
was your name? Okay, Shandia, you just testified at this domestic violence vigil, and you just testified. Tell us a little bit. Tell us in summary what you said. Just in there.
Basically that I had
Speak
been,
up.
Basically that I had been in a domestic violence relationship for the past 3 years, and I was a survivor.
Now, there's that cycle of domestic violence where, you know, he hits you and you go back, he hits you, you go back. Tell us, how did that cycle play out in your relationship?
The first time, when it first started, it was like a slap here and a slap there. And then it was like things being thrown across the room, you know, and my children were always there. And so it was like I was mostly, I didn't say anything, you know, for the sake of my children, because I didn't want anything to happen to me to where I was taken away from them. So I didn't say anything.
Let them off. What kind of things?
I wouldn't do something when he told me to do it, or I would take too long to do something when he told me to do it, or he would say something smart and I would say something smart back, or somebody would call the house that he didn't like. You know, just anything.
Did he feel that he owned you?
The majority of the time he told me he owns me. If he can't have me, nobody can. I can't leave him.
Your friends probably told you he was no good. I mean, tell me, what was your reaction with your friends?
I didn't really say anything because I didn't want to get them involved, because there was a couple occasions where he would go after my friends and my family, you know, if I would try to leave him. So I didn't really say anything because I didn't want to get them hurt, you know.
What made you decide to leave?
After the last time he hit me, and then the fact that my children, they were threatening to take my children away. SDF was threatening to take my children away. So, and besides the fact I decided I didn't want to go through that anymore, you know. So I went ahead and did what I had to do.
What was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of you deciding you didn't want to go through it anymore?
It was after I had my children, I had gotten pregnant again, and I terminated the pregnancy. And that pissed him off, and then he was at my house, and a guy called my house for me, and he lost it. And he hit me in my head with a 22-ounce beer bottle. And my children were there, and they saw it. And that was the final straw.
What advice could you give other young women that may be in the same situation?
Basically, it would be that when they hit you, they tell you they love you. They don't love you. It's not love. That they should not go back for the simple fact that it's just going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And there's no love in the fist at all.
You know, we have some young men involved in this project, and I don't want to diss them. What advice could you give them, just, you know, male advice? Because I don't want to alienate these guys that are trying to learn some stuff.
Just to let them know the same thing. You know, they don't have to take it. They can get out. They can get rid of the female and find somebody better. There's always better.
Thank you, Shandia.
Tanisha, when you have a baby?
Let me go get somebody else to interview. Thank you.
Brother man.
How'd you get that first name?
Hey, well, my grandfather's from Peru.
Okay.
And, you know, South America.
Break the ice. About the vigil, why was it important to do, and why do it now, given the history of domestic violence in this region? And could you preface your statement by saying, we decided to organize and conduct these vigils because blah, blah, blah?
Sure. Let me look at you, right? Look at the camera, okay. Oh, they can talk. We decided to do these vigils now because in July, 17 days in July, there are 8 homicides related to domestic violence. That's more than the whole number of domestic violence related homicides for 1995. It's one less than the total number for 1996. So for whatever reason, we are seeing an escalation of severe violence against women. In addition, there are at least 2 women who were assaulted and have been in intensive care for 3 to 4 weeks now during that same period of time in July. And so for those of us who worked in the field for a long time, who know that there are homicides, who know that women are hurt, this was a shocking month to us. It seemed like every other day someone else was killed, someone else was hurt. We heard some other story. And it was time for us to go out and tell the community how bad it was and what we needed to be doing. And I think it's rare that women are commemorated when they die. And it's rare that domestic violence victims are commemorated when they die. And we felt it was really important that we acknowledge our losses in the community.
Now, let's talk a minute about the cycle of domestic violence. Since you told me our approach was incorrect, that we want to avoid blaming the victim.
Yeah.
Talk about the cycle of domestic violence, please.
Well, people talk about
Wait, we can't beat the bus.
I can compete with the bus.
Afraid not. Those hydraulics kicks your butt.
Yeah.
Yo, Marcy, everybody, hold on. I'm taking you to Baskin and Robbins to debrief, okay?
I am not used to looking at a camera.
Baskin and Robbins in about
Can I look at you?
minutes.
Can I get her? Okay, I
sure.
can't look at a camera and talk.
Please do, because that's
It's like,
yeah.
I can't do it. Okay.
Cycle of domestic.
Cycle of domestic violence. Well, people mean 2 things when they talk about cycle of domestic violence, one of which is the cycle that happens inside the relationship that the perpetrator is doing. And when they talk about that, it's from the victim's side, there's a period of tension building where she feels like she has to walk on eggs, where the perpetrator is doing non-verbal, intimidating kinds of behavior, slamming doors, not speaking to her, being hypercritical about things. So it's a very tense time. Then there's a point where the perpetrator begins some kind of violence, hitting, slapping, kicking, whatever it may be. So you go from this tension building to an explosion to what's called the honeymoon phase, where he's sorry, he'll never do it again. Oh, and it's all part of a pattern of manipulation and control. You know, when he's doing the tension building, he's in his own way getting what it is he wants, and when he's doing the violence, he's getting what he wants, and when he's doing the honeymoon, he's getting what he wants, which is lovey-kissy and everything's better and stay with me and da-da-da. And so it's all part of the same, from the perpetrator's view and from the victim's view, it's all part of manipulation and control, power and control, the issues that are going on. So that's one form of the cycle of violence that people talk about. The other one, and that's real helpful for women to hear, because they go, oh yes. And it's real helpful to think through at various times why it's easy and hard to leave during each period of those. When someone has been battered and is hurt, it's hard to leave because they may be disoriented, they may be injured, they may be terrified of what's going to happen next, so it's difficult for them to think clearly enough to get out. Simultaneously, it's the moment in which it's most clear that this is a dangerous situation. During the honeymoon phase, it's hard and easy. He's being conciliatory and not being abusive and not being physically abusive, so that there's a little more freedom and a little more ability to think and time to think. And simultaneously, he's hooking her back in with roses and kisses and all of that. And during the tension building phase, she can be so busy trying to keep his anger and violence under control that she doesn't have time to think through again when to leave. And yet it's also a good time for her to leave because she knows what's coming next. The violence is coming next. So that's one cycle. The other one is the intergenerational cycle, which we don't even know is real.
You know, I got to be fair. I'm working with some young men.
I know you got it.
What can we, how can we teach them this is not how to control a relationship? How do we teach young men about this issue, since the majority of the time they're the perpetrator?
Right. That's a good question. How we teach young men, how we stop another generation from doing violence in that way. I think it's on multiple levels, one of which is on relationship skills and teaching respect and talking about gender issues and gender stereotyping and inequality between the genders and all of that, and talking about how you do good communication and how violence is not a good solution, and building self-esteem within the young men, and doing a broad array of different kinds of things that are directed at the young men. On the other hand, domestic violence is not just about one dysfunctional, violent young person and the victim. There's a whole social structure that supports it, that says it's okay, that makes it hard for the victim to get out, whether it's inequality in wages, whether it's social pressure from her church or her family to be in a relationship, to be married, to have children, to stay for the sake of the children, whether it's a police response that's not totally supportive. You know, they're supposed to arrest, they don't always arrest. We get a lot of implicit and explicit messages that violence is okay, that women are supposed to be hurt, that there's something sexy about violence, that the relationship between men and women is supposed to be one of men controlling women and being in powerful situations. And so I think there's the individual intervention that needs to happen and prevention, and there's a broader social and cultural changes that have to happen to make it change.
What are some main points you think we ought to focus on in this video?
I think some of the things you need to focus on in the video is to keep the broader social picture in mind, and to understand that there are other pressures that are, I mean, people say, well, why is it that men are doing all the battering, and you know, 95% of the time it's men battering women or girls, and it's not, I don't think it's about men are intrinsically awful, terrible, psychopathic creatures, but that there's a whole social structure that supports it. So I think that's one thing you need to keep in mind. And the other one is that the only person who's responsible for the violence is the one who's doing it. You know, that it's not, there is no excuse to do any kind of victim blaming. And thirdly, there's a pattern of power and control. That it's not just about somebody hit somebody, it's about name calling, it's about manipulation, it's about power and control, it's about keeping power over somebody.
Thank you.
Okay?
Before you go on vacation,